This channel is not just about stories. It's about hidden codes that are behind the reality you live in. And perhaps without realizing it, you have been trying to decipher them for years. Here, each case is a key, a clue, a mirror of what you may also be experiencing. Today, what you're about to hear seems impossible. But when you understand the universal laws, the impossible becomes just misunderstood. In this video, you will discover a little-known law, but one that has the power to completely change the way your reality manifests itself. A law that explains why so many things get stuck, even when you do everything right, and more. How to access this invisible key in your daily life without having to force it, without pretending, without losing yourself. By understanding this law and living by it, you will begin to attract people, situations, and opportunities that truly have to do with who you really are. Does it seem impossible? Wait until you learn this hidden truth. Have you ever found yourself wondering why, even though you follow all the rules of the law of attraction, visualize, think, and try to maintain a positive vibration, life just doesn't flow? What if I told you that the real blockage is not in your technique nor in your faith, but in something more subtle and devastating, the fact that you are trying to be someone you are not? You may not realize it, but there is a silent pain that consumes thousands of people every day. It is that feeling of wearing a mask to fit into places where your soul no longer wants to be, of waking up and, before even getting out of bed, already wearing an identity that is not yours, just to be accepted, validated, loved. And in this constant effort to please, to mold yourself, to not disappoint, you lose yourself. The universe feels it, and it goes silent. Because here's a truth that almost no one tells you. Reality doesn't respond to what you pretend to be. It responds to what you emit. And your real vibration can't be manipulated with pretty words if inside you feel disconnected from who you really are. This is the invisible root of many manifestation blocks. And it's connected to a little talked about but profoundly powerful law of true identity. An energetic combination of mentalism, vibration, and correspondence that reveals a brutal secret. You don't attract what you want, you attract what is. Have you ever been through this? That phase where everything seems stuck, relationships don't flow, money evaporates, opportunities disappear, and no matter how much you try to think positive, nothing changes. Maybe the problem isn't what you're asking the universe for. Maybe the universe is just waiting for you to stop hiding. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover may surprise you. There's an invisible line between who you show yourself to be and who you really are. And it's along that line that your life manifests or blocks itself. And when you try to manifest dreams based on a distorted version of yourself, the universe doesn't recognize it. It doesn't respond to the mask. It responds to the essence. Maybe that's why you feel so tired, not just physically, but spiritually. Carrying a character around day after day drains your life energy, and the more you try to fit in, the more your reality fragments. It's like trying to open a door with the wrong key over and over again, until you realize it's not the door that's locked. It's you who's trying to get into a life that doesn't belong to you. And this is exactly where the transformation begins. When the mask begins to fall, when you dare to look in the mirror and ask, who am I trying to be and why? Because at that moment, something inside you awakens. And the universe, silent until then, finally responds. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Because the moment he stopped pretending, everything changed. Ryan Whitaker was always quick to adapt. He would observe his surroundings, see what was expected of him, and become exactly that. At work, he was the impeccable, articulate, controlled professional. In relationships, he was the understanding partner, the one who gave in, the one who kept quiet. Even in the most intimate conversations, he chose his words carefully, like someone walking on broken glass, afraid of revealing too much, of being misunderstood, of displeasing. And on the outside, everything seemed fine. But on the inside, something was falling apart. At first, they were just mild sensations, a restlessness in his chest, constant tiredness, the feeling that time was slipping through his fingers. But little by little, this discomfort turned into an abyss. He would wake up with an anguish he couldn't name. He began to notice himself absent in meetings, disconnected from conversations, distant even from the things he once enjoyed doing. It was as if he were living in slow motion, following a script written by someone else. "I'm doing everything right, but nothing is working." This phrase echoed inside him like an inverted mantra. It was as if he had faithfully followed all the rules of the game, but the game simply wasn't working for him, until life started to take its toll. First, it was a friendship that had lasted for years that fell apart without explanation. Then, an important project that failed. Then, the end of a relationship in which he no longer knew who he was trying to love, the person in front of him or the version he himself created to be loved. Things started to slip through his fingers. The clients dwindled, the sparkle in his eyes faded, and even his body began to react. Insomnia, tension, silent anxiety attacks in the company bathroom. He tried to hide it, to maintain control, but the truth was that inside, Ryan was imploding. It was at this point that the breakdown came. It wasn't one specific event, but a succession of small ruptures that together formed an internal explosion. One night, looking at his reflection in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. Not by his appearance, but by his absence. It was as if he had edited himself so much that there was almost nothing left. In that moment, something broke, and instead of trying to glue the pieces back together, Ryan simply let go. He stopped trying to impress. He stopped saying yes when he meant no. He stopped smiling half-heartedly. For the first time in a long time, he began to listen to that discomfort that was screaming deep inside him, and he realized it wasn't sabotage or madness. It was his true self trying to come home. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because what happened in the days following that decision was the beginning of a turnaround. And everything started to change, not because he tried harder, but because finally he stopped fighting who he really was. Comment here. That makes sense to me. Let's understand a little more, because this story isn't just about Ryan. On some level, it's also about you, about me, about all of us. How many times have you felt like you were playing a role that no one else wrote for you? How many times have you put on a smile when inside you wanted to cry? How many times have you said yes when your whole body was screaming no? Have you accepted invitations, ideas, relationships, jobs, not because you wanted to, but because you felt you should? Because it had to feel right. Because being you felt too risky. The truth is that throughout our lives we accumulate versions of ourselves, shaped by fear, expectations, and trauma. And at some point, we confuse these versions with who we really are. It's like living with an invisible filter over our soul. Everything we feel, desire, dream, passes through this filter first. And what reaches the world is no longer pure, no longer yours. Maybe that's why so many things get stuck. The vibration you emit is not that of your true self. It's that of the character you've built to survive. And the universe, which responds not to your desires but to your frequency, simply reflects what you are being, not what you are forcing yourself to appear to be. This is a hidden truth that no one teaches when they talk about manifestation, positive thinking, or the law of attraction. It's not about what you say. It's about what you vibrate when no one is looking. It's in the silence of small decisions, behind the scenes of your routine, that your reality is formed. And the cruelest thing about all this is that many people think they are failing, when in fact they are just trying to create a life based on an identity that is not compatible with their soul. There is a profound impact when you spend too much time denying yourself. It starts slowly like an internal noise, but one day it becomes noise, then despair, because the emptiness of not being who you are consumes you. And the most impressive thing is that true transformation does not require forced effort, nor a radical change overnight. It begins the moment you allow yourself to look in the mirror and ask yourself honestly, who am I trying to be, and for whom? This question doesn't just bring answers. It brings liberation, it brings truth, it brings discomfort too, sure. But it's in the discomfort that the chance for liberation lies. And it was exactly at this point that Ryan began to find himself again. Not because he was seeking approval, but because he finally realized that everything he wanted was already inside him, waiting for permission to exist. Write it down. I'm on this journey too. And the most beautiful thing about all this is that when Ryan began to allow himself to be who he was, without disguises, without characters, without the burden of trying to please, the world around him began to respond differently. Connections became more genuine. Opportunities began to appear from unexpected places. He didn't have to chase after everything, because what was his began to find him, not by magic, but by coherence. His vibration was finally aligned with his essence. And when that happens, the universe understands the signal clearly. Maybe, as you listen to this, you are remembering times when you also tried to hide. Or maybe you are living this now, wondering when you will have the courage to stop acting. And that is why this space here exists, not only to tell stories, but to create bridges between people who feel, think, and experience deep things, but often in silence. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what has touched you the most so far. Sometimes writing about what we feel is the first step to getting out of the automatic mode and getting closer to the truth. I read everything you write, and the exchange that happens down there is as powerful as the content up here. Your participation. Here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of message. If this video touched something inside you, like it now, it helps spread the reflection to more people who need to hear it. And if you feel like you're part of this journey, subscribe to the channel. There's much more to come, and I want you to be there for each revelation, each hidden truth that we're going to bring to light. Now, let's move on, because there's still one important piece of this puzzle that you need to know. What seems like just an emotional outburst or a confusing phase actually has a very clear and transformative, energetic explanation. What Ryan experienced and what so many other people experience every day is directly linked to what I call law of true identity. This law is like an invisible gear, a spiritual force that acts behind the scenes of your reality, even if you don't know how to name it. It is based on three universal principles: mentalism, a vibration, and to correspondence. Mentalism says that everything starts in the mind, that reality is a reflection of consciousness. But what few people realize is that it's not enough to have beautiful thoughts if the basis of your consciousness is disconnected from who you really are. When you think from a character, you are creating from an illusion, and everything that is born from illusion collapses over time. Vibration reveals that we are energy, and that the energy we emit attracts similar frequencies. But here is the crucial point. When you live trying to fit into an image that is not yours, the vibration that comes out of you is not clean, it is not coherent. It is like trying to tune into a radio station with noise. The signal arrives, but it is distorted, confused, and the universe does not respond clearly. It freezes, it goes silent. Not because it wants to punish you, but because it is waiting for the right signal, the one that comes from your essence. And that's where correspondence comes in. The as within, so without. What you experience internally is reflected in the external world. And if there is conflict, division, a constant attempt to be something you're not inside, guess what? Your reality becomes an exact reflection of this disconnection. Situations that don't flow, people who don't see you, goals that always seem distant. You feel like you're walking but in circles. A law of true identity acts as a kind of cosmic filter. The universe does not respond to the character you play. It responds to your true frequency. And this has nothing to do with perfection, with being spiritual all the time, or with saying everything right. It has to do with authenticity, with vibrational coherence. When you recognize yourself, with both light and shadow, and begin to act from that place, something changes. Not outside, inside. And that internal shift is so powerful that the world around you has no choice but to rearrange itself in response. It's as if reality has been waiting all along for you to appear. Not the you that pleases, that copies, that pretends, but the you that feels, that chooses, that vibrates with presence. And when this version begins to take up space, doors open, relationships gain truth, paths that were previously invisible are revealed. Write it down. My vibration reveals me. Because deep down, That's what's always been happening, even if you haven't understood how yet. Ryan's life began to change the moment he stopped trying to look like the successful guy. It wasn't a grand decision, announced to the world with courage and confidence. It was a quiet one, almost timid. It started with a no he would never have said before. With a phone call he decided not to return. With a meeting where, for the first time, he didn't force enthusiasm. It was in that small space of sincerity that something inside him reorganized. And it was there that reality began to respond in a different way. He clearly remembers the day he looked in the mirror and whispered to himself, "I can't stand lying to myself anymore." There was no drama, just tiredness. An old, deep tiredness from so many years of trying to maintain a version of himself that was not sustainable. It was like carrying a heavy suitcase full of other people's expectations and suddenly dropping it on the floor. That solitary confession, so simple and so true, was the key that turned everything around. In the days that followed, nothing looked different from the outside. Same job, same places, same routines. But there was something different about the way he occupied space. Ryan stopped justifying who he was. He started speaking his mind even when he was afraid. He started making choices that came from within, even if they didn't make sense to others. And this didn't bring immediate relief. It brought discomfort. Yes, the truth hurts before it's released, but it was a different discomfort than the one he'd been feeling for years. It was the discomfort of growth, not repression. And then, as if in an invisible script, things started to happen. A former colleague he admired reached out of the blue, offering an opportunity that was completely aligned with what he wanted to do in life. He was invited to an event where, for the first time, he felt like he could speak up and be heard without having to prove anything. He met people who didn't want his performance. They wanted his presence. And for the first time, Ryan wasn't trying to fit in. He was simply being. This is the turning point that few can see, but that changes everything. The universe is not punishing you. It is not denying your requests. It just does not recognize the frequency of that which is not true. The mask may even fool the world for a time, but it never fools the vibration, because the vibration comes from the soul, and the soul does not shout and it whispers, but when you choose to listen to it, it responds clearly. That's why, even without changing cities, professions, or routines, Ryan began to experience a new life, because real change never starts outside. It starts when you take off your armor, when you no longer need to pretend, when you understand that reality doesn't need to be forced, it just needs to be allowed. And that's what allowing is, giving space for your soul to have a voice, because that's how the universe talks. It always has. If you've come this far, it's because something inside you has recognized this truth, maybe in silence, maybe with a heavy heart. But you have. The journey of returning to yourself is not easy. It requires courage, presence, and above all, honesty. But if this conversation touched you, if it awakened something inside you, then you've already started on this path. And you don't have to walk it alone. Subscribe to the channel if this type of content makes you feel good, provokes you, helps you see things that were hidden. There are a lot of deep things coming, and I want to continue this exchange with you. Take advantage and comment below. This message was for me, just so I know that you stayed until the end and that we are connected on this journey. If this video made you feel something, please leave a like. This isn't just a number, it's a signal to YouTube that this conversation needs to reach more people who are also trying to find themselves. And if you want to continue diving into this subject, there is a video here that complements everything we talked about today. Click and stay with me there, because the journey is just beginning.